Why are there ridges on Reese's peanut butter cups? Probably so they never slip from her hands. Can you imagine? I'd lose it. Luckily, Reese's thought about that. Wonder what else they think about. Probably chocolate and peanut butter.
Hey, what's going on, Los Angeles? Welcome to the Rams Skinny here on the LAFB network. We are Los Angeles Sports. Thank you, as always, for making us a part of your day and your home for Rams talk. And somber day today. Somber news, as we were planning to do more free agency talk, going down our list of positions and players the Rams can target. We'll get back to that. But as of last night, the breaking news from the man himself, Cooper Kupp will in fact be traded from the Los Angeles Rams, or if no trade partner is found, I'm sure will just be released. But based on his tweet and context from around the league, including other insiders, Cooper Kupp's time as a Los Angeles Ram is done. So we will discuss that at length today, what he's meant to the org, potential trade partners, what the Rams could potentially get back. Plus also just a look down at what he's meant for this Rams team in comparison to other greats and just great receivers in NFL. So this is a Cooper Kupp swan song, if you will, similarly to what we did almost exactly a year ago when Aaron Donald announced out of nowhere that he was retiring, and we had to jump on here for a live and discuss what that meant for the team. And here we are just about a year later with another great pillar of this team no longer going to be on the team in 2025. So we'll get into all that. First and foremost, Skinny T. I won't even ask you about the news yet. Just how are you doing? How are you in general as my good friend and colleague?
Man, the hits just keep on coming. There's all sorts of crazy LA news. We got all the Luka Doncic talk, all of the Dodgers signings and craziness that their offseason has produced. Clippers making moves as well. This is just another one. It's fascinating, interesting time in sports right now. Everything's moving. We got the Super Bowl happening. We got Radio Row going on. Wow. I mean, this is our time. This is for us in the media. Everything's moving right now.
Yeah, I don't think New York can no longer be called the city that never sleeps. It's LA now because we just got sports news coming 24/7. It seems like with all these teams making moves. And I was Saturday night. I was at a Jelly Roll concert at the Rose Bowl when this Luka Doncic trade broke, and I was just like texting our group like, "Holy cow, what is happening? Like, can anyone get on this? I'm at the Rose Bowl, like insane." And I mean, yeah, it's real. And Luka's here. We had Puka Doncic, the excitement of that for just a short time, and then all of a sudden, Rams have to break, or Cooper Kupp actually broke that he's getting traded. So never ending here in LA, right, Skinny?
Never ending, yeah. That's a good way to put it. And this is kicking off the very tip of the iceberg for what's going to be a very fascinating Rams offseason.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no two ways around it. This year is going to be really groundbreaking, and we'll see how different this team looks in just a few months.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. So we'll get into all that. Show is always quickly brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. All the best wagers, money lines, prop bets for the big game. As it stands right now, the Chiefs are 1-point favorites on BetOnline, minus 122 money line, over under 49 points against the Eagles. So all that can be done on BetOnline. They have the best props when you look at over under for the national anthem, what color the Gatorade is going to be. You can do different point spreads for all the quarters. All that fun stuff. If the coin toss can be heads or tails, all can be done at betonline.ag, where the game starts. Tell them the guys at the Rams, Skinny, and the LAFB network sent you. So quickly, Skinny, before we get into Cooper Kupp, I know I mentioned I was at a Jelly Roll concert. It was a free concert put on by Jelly Roll for first responders, which ironically enough, I think you're rocking it too, right? Looking good.
Oh, yeah.
Our LAFB FD shirt. All proceeds go to help the LAFD Fire Department and the Pasadena Fire Department. But so he's put on a free concert. I am not a first responder, obviously, but we have lots of friends, and first responders got 4 tickets to invite their friends. So we were blessed to be invited by one of our friends who is a police officer, and then My wife's sister was also there, who's a nurse. So, but it was, aside from the trade going down, it's pretty wild, Skinny. Like free, totally free. Like not like a benefit, like raising money. It was just like, hey, get your ticket, show up. And yeah, so it was Jelly Roll that was awesome. Shinedown showed up. Public Enemy with Flava Flav showed up. A country artist who I'm drawing a blank on his name, but lots of people have heard of him. He showed up. Lainey Wilson showed up. Marshmello showed up. It was a wild, fun night. And then you add on to that the Lakers trade, and it was like wild night in Los Angeles. Just par for the course.
Yeah, absolutely. The city that never sleeps.
Never sleeps. So, but I never.
It's one of the great things somebody pointed out to me. It's like, why do we have traffic all the time? People here are always going to work.
You're always doing something.
No matter what the hour of the day is, people are always doing something.
Yeah, the things don't just shut down at like 9 o'clock, like in small towns or whatever. Which sometimes I wish they did. A lot of times, actually, I think I wish they did. But yeah, so crazy with that, and then we get to this Cooper Kupp news on Monday Eve. Couldn't give us a break. Like let's just take a break. We're still digesting the big Lakers news, still digesting, like you mentioned, some of these Dodgers moves that have been going down. Still digesting USC Trojans had their junior day on Saturday, hired more staff members, all that. Cooper Kupp being announced traded. I don't think, Skinny, and I want to get your just initial reaction to it before we kind of break down, what it means and other stuff. But for me, it wasn't a huge surprise. I think we talked a lot over the last few episodes about it looked unlikely that it looked like he for sure would not be back on his current contract. And so either they would have to renegotiate some new deal, completely new deal, changing that cap number to go down dramatically, or he would be moved. And I don't know. This will be the interesting conversation over the next maybe couple months if things come out. I don't know if they had a conversation about that exact thing. And Cooper Kupp basically said, like, no, I'm not taking a huge pay cut. Like, I signed this contract. I want to play this contract through. Or if that conversation just never happened and the team just decided, wait, you know what? We love you. Thanks for your time. But like we've done with other stars in this organization, we're moving on and moving in a new direction. So that's something we can discuss. But what was just your initial thoughts when, we were both on working, or we were technically, I was not, but you were on when the news broke that Kupp's getting traded?
Yeah. I mean, I was shocked that it was happening. Sad. That's an emotion.
Yeah.
Just reading the thing he did post to Twitter. It was a bummer. He didn't want to leave. The things that I've seen come out recently was that the Rams didn't see his added value to the roster. It wasn't commensurate with the amount of money that they were paying for him. So there is a possibility that they tried to lowball him, tried to get him to come back to the negotiating table to get that down. But you go back to I think it was the 49ers crossover preview show that we did with our good buddy that, I predicted that the Rams would move on from him just because if you look, I've said it about Tutu Atwell, and you could say it about anybody on the roster. They have to be able to meet a certain need within the offense. And over the last several games, including the playoff games, it was like he wasn't even there. He wasn't even a part of the offense.
Yep.
So, you look at the decline that he had in the things that made him special, made him Cooper Kupp, his blocking ability, his ability to catch the ball behind the line of scrimmage and take it for a big gain. And really the yak was the big drop off. They started using him differently. He isn't the same Cooper Kupp that we have grown accustomed to. And this offense is changing. So all that to say is I wasn't surprised by it, but it's just, you never want to see it go down like this. A guy that has poured his heart and soul, the words that Sean McVay has used to describe Cooper Kupp's influence on his life. Mm-hmm. This is bigger than football. This is human connections. This is friendships. And unfortunately, at the end of the day, it's a business, and they had to make the right call for the team. I think it's the right call for the team. I think that's where I am in terms of just my reaction. The things I've been thinking of for the last 15 hours or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard, man. Like obviously the greatness that is Cooper Kupp and what he's meant just not to this team, but to this city. Drafted by this team, as we mentioned last episode or two episodes ago, is Sean McVay's second ever draft pick. Because remember they drafted Gerald Everett, and then Cooper Kupp was next, so his second ever draft pick as a head coach in the NFL under the Sean McVay era. So obviously a lot of meaning there. What he's meant to this offense, winning the Triple Crown, the historic season that was, how he's battled back from injury, and comeback player, and then what he's been able to do in regards to that. So it's tough. All that is hard. From the business side, what we've seen, and I mentioned previously that, in the NFL in general, you can't have two Batmans as receiver. You have to have a Batman and a Robin, primarily for contract reasons. Because every team that has like two elite receivers, typically that second one is still a rookie on a rookie deal. You rarely see two top end receivers. And the Rams, you could argue, well, why change now? Like, yeah, Puka Nacua is becoming the Batman and Cooper Kupp is becoming the Robin, but contractually, Puka Nacua still got 2 years left on his rookie deal. They could at least see that through. But what's interesting, Skinny, about this Rams offense is we've seen this for the last few years. Is it's not even like a Batman and Robin. It's just a Batman. I mean, we saw this with Robert Woods, right? The year that Cooper Kupp truly broke out, had a Triple Crown year. Obviously, Robert Woods ended up getting hurt during that season. But prior to that, what was the big conversation? Where's Robert Woods? He's not involved in the offense at all. Like is he even needed in this offense? He's not getting targeted. Matthew Stafford's not even looking his way. Then he gets injured. They end up trading for, everyone remembers, Odell Beckham that year, and he was a nice piece, but it was never like he was going to be in the running for Cooper Kupp. He was just kind of a nice piece, if you will. And then I obviously moved on from Robert Woods after that, and then moved on from Odell Beckham. And so for whatever reason, this offense, whether it's McVay, whether it's Stafford, it hasn't been, and I don't know if anyone could argue, there's never been a Batman and a Robin. There's been a Batman and whoever's like Alfred, whoever like the next pieces are in the Batman trilogy, Alfred the Butler, I guess you could say. And so it came to that point that you couldn't have two, and I'm not saying Cooper Kupp's some like alpha personality, but there wasn't a fit to have obviously his contract, but to have even someone that wanted to vie for that much of a role, because that's just not the way this offense operates. And so moving forward, I think, everyone I know will probably get to this, but there's a lot of people talking like, oh, where are they going to go after Garrett Wilson and this? Like, I'm not saying I would be shocked if they didn't, because the Rams, they can't shock me anymore because they just do things that are like, you don't think are coming. But the way the offense operates, to me, it doesn't make sense to go after Garrett Wilson, because then what does that mean? Then Puka Nacua is going to be expendable and not going to get targeted anymore. Like the way this offense operates is this is now Puka's team, and then you have a bunch of set pieces, and there'll be guys like one game. If they bring DeMarcus Robinson, he'll have a big game. One game will be a Tyler Higbee game, but you have one guy that's your centerpiece. You can't have two. So to me, a Garrett Wilson trade makes no sense, but that's a different conversation. But that's what I think it kind of came down to, was the contract. And the way the offense operates is one alpha receiver and the rest are all role play pieces. And if they did have a conversation with Kupp, regardless of money, and I don't think it's an ego at all. Kupp is like one of the most selfless, humble guys, wants to help the team. But when you believe you're still one of the top receivers, you want to get more than one catch a game. Like that's not being selfish. That's just like you want to contribute more than that. So it may have been that of him saying like, look, yeah, I think I can still be a 1,000, 1,200, 13-yard, 100-yard guy, but the way this offense is operating, like I would never get there. So anyway, just my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. And, when teams are drafting, particularly in day 3, late round stuff, they're looking for, could this guy potentially become something? And you look at what happened to Puka Nacua in such a short amount of time. It was just incredible.
Yeah.
They landed on this guy who is, the rookie leader in receiving yards of all time. Broke a historic record that was standing for forever. So, it created this opportunity for the Rams to replace Cooper Kupp. It wasn't like they were like, when they envisioned those two together, they never envisioned Puka Nacua to be this good, or they would have taken him in the second round or first round or whatever their first draft pick was.
Yeah.
They didn't see this coming, and then this is a unfortunate version of what Sean McVay calls a champagne problem. Is now you have to figure out how Cooper Kupp fits into this offense, and they've made the call. And I think an interesting thing that I'm seeing in the kind of the media discourse is a lot of the media still sees Cooper Kupp as an elite receiver that can be dropped into a team, let's say like the Browns, that they don't have a quarterback, they don't have any receivers. Maybe Nick Chubb is a bit of offense, but they don't have a lot of pieces. They think he could be dropped into the Browns and just be the offense. It's just that part of his game is over. He's going to be a second or third piece to complement a young up and coming receiver. So, I think that perception is out there because of his greatness and just how incredible he was for a short span of his career. It's incredible. We were looking at the records and kind of his stats over the last few years, and he really had just a couple of healthy seasons and 2 outstanding seasons as a pass catcher.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the other piece of this equation that I was kind of alluding to is like, okay, this back half of this year where, I mean, we talk about it ad nauseum, like why is Cooper Kupp not being used in this offense? And the question is like, was that on Cooper Kupp? Like, was he not getting open enough? Was, for whatever reason, I wouldn't say the trust was lost. That's too harsh a word, but was there just not the same connection between him and Stafford? And Stafford had established that obviously with other guys who had been healthy when he was out. Or was it McVay and Stafford, not maybe intentionally, but just kind of fizzling him out of the offense and making the focal point other guys on the team? And so he still is a very viable threat as a receiver, but the Rams just weren't utilizing him. And maybe he does go somewhere and everyone's like, oh, wow, look, he's still great. And I would hope that. I honestly would hope that. But that's what we don't know. Like, is he still potentially great, just not getting used? Because as I've said many times, the receiver is the most dependent position in all of sports. Like, how many Hall of Famers are out there that you've never heard of just because they never got the ball? You just don't know, right? Like, there's some receivers that basically are magnets to the football and people cannot not get them. But there's other receivers that are probably really, really good, but just for whatever reason aren't necessarily in the game plan as much, or the quarterback just doesn't look their way as much, or the pass protection doesn't hold up long enough for them to get the ball, whatever it may be. So that'll be the interesting thing to really see, is if it was a Cooper Kupp thing or if it was a schematic play calling thing that had fizzled him out and see. And what's interesting, Skinny, we were kind of talking about this pre-show, but he's going to be 32 before the season starts. And receivers, they say, what's the running back age is like the kiss of death, like 28, basically after one contract. It's like rare your running backs are still good outside of a handful. I think receiver, it's like 30 is kind of that, like, once receivers hit 30, that's like, it's rare that guys stay elite. And we were kind of chatting and I'll kind of put you on the spot. We did a little bit of research, but like, how many receivers can you think of that ended their careers still in elite form? Like, everyone wants to go out on top, right? There's going to be fallouts at every player position, whatever. But receiver might be, and running back are probably the 2 positions that have the steepest fall off, to where here's a guy that was like a top 5 receiver 1 year and 2 years later is on his 3rd team as wide receiver 5. And you think about like how many, I mean, you can go down the list. Julio Jones, like, he fell off out of nowhere, like was a 1,600-yard receiver, next year on a different team, barely, knew where he's in. DeAndre Hopkins, I think, is still good. I'm not saying he's bad, but he's not D-Hop from Houston when he was great. I could just name a bunch, but is Cooper Kupp that? Like, is 2021 too far in the rearview mirror where it was great while it lasted, but now we're looking at a Cooper Kupp, whatever team he's on, where he's a 500-600-yard pass catcher until he hangs it up?
I think that's a distinct possibility. I think there, I've been trying to get through Paper Lion, great a book by George Plimpton chronicling his time with the as the no string quarterback. I think he calls himself for the Detroit Lions in the mid '60s. You can go back to that book, and there's a whole chapter dedicated to one wide receiver who is kind of your quintessential diva wide receiver who wants the ball.
Mm-hmm.
This stereotype of receivers exists throughout history because you have to have that element about yourself. Cooper Kupp, for as humble as a person as he is, he's never pounded his chest and said, "Give me the damn ball," but he's got that inside of him. Every great receiver has something inside of him that says, "If I'm the one you want to throw that ball to," So
if not, you'll be a cornerback or a tight end or something else. Like, you're not going to be a receiver if you don't want the ball.
Yeah. So I think that fight and that spirit is still in him, and he made some pretty fantastic catches down the stretch, even in that time where he wasn't the number one receiver for the Rams. So I think unless he is so tied to this Rams organization that he refuses to want to go anywhere else and just retire, I could actually see that happening. But yeah, I think going back to what you were saying about was it Kupp or was it the offense? I think the reason the Sean McVay offense is referred to as quarterback friendly is because they give Stafford the first read that's your best route. This is where we want the ball to go on this route. And those started going to Puka Nacua, not Cooper.
Yeah.
So, but I think he's going to be in that kind of 500-yard range for the rest of his career. I don't think he's going to be a number one receiver regardless of where he goes. And if he is, that team is going to see some hardship for that because based on injuries alone, I think it's sort of disqualifying for Cooper to be considered a number one receiver going forward.
Yeah.
I still think he can catch. I still think he can separate, but that specialness is gone.
Yeah, it does feel that way. And off the top of my head, Skinny, like the only receiver I can think of that and we'll just put the baseline as Pro Bowler, not even like All Pro, because that's two guys. So Pro Bowler as the baseline. The only one I can think of is Calvin Johnson. Like even Jerry Rice played for like 4 teams that everyone forgets about. Like played for like the Seahawks, the Raiders, and the Broncos before his career was all said and done. So it's rare that. Remember Des Bryant? Like he was good one year and then just gone, just retired. Just
Terrell Owens.
No one wanted him. Who?
Terrell Owens.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many of these guys, and it's that ego thing. It's that, like they still think they got it. And I think, it's sad when that happens to football players. It happens to quarterbacks too,
Yeah. Every position it happens. I think receiver might just be one, and running back just might be the two biggest ones because you're used to seeing those guys in the limelight being pass catchers. But when you go from 12, 13, 1,400 yards in Pro Bowl to 40 catches for 480 the very next year, it's like, whoa, what happened? It's you're just probably not being featured as much. So let's turn it to this, and then we'll end the show with maybe trade partner destinations, because obviously the Rams would hope to get something back. We'll say very, very adamantly it will not be much. So Rams fans, do not be expecting much in this trade package. We'll get to that in a second. But where would you put Cooper Kupp among Rams greats in terms of receivers? Where would you put him? Hey, what's going on, family? Got to quickly tell you about our friends over at Underdog Fantasy, new sponsor and friend of the show. One of the most fun games out there, fantasy games you can do in the industry today. Super easy to do. Go to the App Store or go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Download today. Use our promo code LAFB, or you can just click the link in the description wherever you are watching. That promo code is going to give the new user that you have just become a free pick, one free pick, and up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That's free money. up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Why would you not want to do that for a simple deposit? Just make sure to use that promo code LAFB or click the link below. The game is super easy. It's super fun. Pick 2 to 8 players in a game. Go ahead and go with the higher or lower, whether they're going to have more passing yards, touchdowns, receiving yards, rushing yards, any of that. It's a lot of fun. And just choose higher or lower. That's easy with the opportunity to win. So go to Underdog Fantasy today. Promo code LAFB gets you a free entry and up to a $1,000 bonus cash.
I mean, I'm looking at top 5 definitely all time.
Mm-hmm.
Just statistically, is by from a receiving yards perspective. Obviously, you got Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, Henry Ellard, and then you got Cooper Kupp, and the other guys have a bit of longevity to their game, whereas Cooper was definitely a flash in the pan. Only a couple of seasons where he was on the field for the entire year. You got to take that. It's. I mean, it's hard to put him outside of the top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if I could. You think of obviously some of the past great ones, but yeah, I think you obviously have Bruce and Holt there at the top. Ellard right there.
I mean, Elroy Hirsch has the
Crazy
5th
legs.
most. Crazy Legs Hirsch has the 5th most receiving yards. Still, 1957 is when he retired.
That's
Or when
insane.
yeah.
Like he might be 3 or 4 just based on that era. That wasn't even like a passing era.
He was a right end and
and
probably a punter.
Yeah. And they only played did they play 13 games back then?
Probably.
So
he was probably a plumber in the off season as well.
Exactly. Running a paper route still. Yeah. So, I mean, he's got to be above Kupp, and that's no disrespect, but when you just see that era and to still have that 5th in yards, that's insane. But yeah, Kupp's top 5. I mean, whether you want to put him 5, 3, 4, wherever, I think he's got to be top 5. When you have even if it was a single year and there was only 2 years over 1,000 yards total of his career here in LA because of the injuries and other things. But that 1 year, I think, just bumps him a notch considering Triple Crown winner, broken records, Super Bowl MVP, the eliteness he had in that playoff run. I mean, think of what he did just in the playoffs in general. That Buccaneers game with that last second catch to give the Rams the win. What he did in the Super Bowl once OBJ went out. I mean, he was the offense. Once OBJ went out, it was just him against the Bengals. So there's
no running game to speak of.
Nope, none at all. And there's sometimes when, and Hall of Fame conversation is way, way down the line. I'm not talking that at all. But there's sometimes when singular moments and singular seasons can elevate you. And I always talk about Terrell Davis because, being a Bronco fan from Denver, a lot of people were like, how is it? He only played 7 years, only 4 good years. How is he in the Hall of Fame? But, when you consider what he did in the playoffs, how instrumental he was to the Broncos' 2 Super Bowl wins back-to-back years, 2,000-yard rusher, like records broken. Like sometimes those outweigh like a longevity of above average play, that one elite season. So that one season, no matter what, I think puts Kupp in that top 5, but he'll go down as a great Ram. I mean, just what he's done off the field and how beloved he is by this fan base. And yeah, sucks to see him go, man. End of an era.
Yeah. And it's going to be super hard to see him in a different uniform. There's only one that I can see him in that it's not going to be super weird, but we'll get to the trade partner thing later.
Yeah. I mean, so I always say last thing, but we're doing okay on time here. So can you think of so before we get to trade partners, has there been outside of, and I'll just probably steal the one you're going to say, I'm not counting Stafford because he's been like restructured and they're all different. Outside of like Rob Havenstein, since the Rams have been in LA, has there been a second contract that Snead has doctored that's worked out for the Rams?
I think Kupp is probably the last one that really worked out.
But he still has 2 years and they're shipping him out. So you can't even argue. I mean, yes, he would, because obviously he's longer than just his rookie season, but I can't think of anyone else. I mean, obviously Gurley, we know what went down that. We know Goff, what happened with that. We know Joe Noteboom, what's happening with that?
Yeah, I mean Joe Newboom is the last player to get a contract after their rookie season. I think as I'm scrolling through. I mean, 2020 is gone. 2019 is gone. Yeah, so it's Higbee, Havenstein, and Kupp are the three successful since 2017. 2017 is when Alvin Kamara came into the league. So I mean,
Oh man.
it's
So yeah, as
fast.
great as Les Snead is, which he is, I don't want fans to get Les Snead's a fantastic GM, and he's a fun GM to cover because he does things so differently. So don't hear us wrong. As great as he is, though, not very good at doctor, and even in the deals that they've done for their second year, and I get the market commands the price range, but like when he did those for Goff and Gurley, probably too early, right? Like they were not even up on their contracts, and they re-signed them to new deals really early into their current ones. So hasn't been great in his second
Well,
deals.
you see the logic in that where I mean every time somebody signs a contract, it resets the market, So you
Yeah.
want to get underneath of that, but jump the gun on those two. But yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious now what's going to happen with Puka Nacua, because he's based on what Les Snead has done. Nacua could get a contract extension this offseason going into year 3.
I mean, that's pretty advisable. I mean, I think
Seeing what we've seen from him, I think, the only concern at all is the injury history.
yeah.
That'd be the only concern. But at his age, but yeah. Seeing what T. Higgins is about to demand on the market, you might want to get ahead of that one. The
I think
fact,
so.
not to get on a soapbox, but the fact that T. Higgins is not a bad receiver, but the fact that reports are that he is going to reset the receiver market, be the highest paid receiver in NFL history, making 30 plus million a year. I don't like how the market works like that. Like, be the best to set the market, not just because you're up in free agency. Like, it's ridiculous.
Well, he's probably well, I mean, Chris Godwin or he are
He's
number
the
one
best
or
free
number
agent
two.
for sure.
Yeah, those two are one or two of the best free agents. But the rest of the free agent class, you got Amari Cooper, he's on the last legs. Stephon Diggs also, DeAndre Hopkins, same boat. Marquise Brown. I mean, Darius Slayton is nice, but not a number one. Keenan Allen, like Deontay Johnson. I keep rooting for him, but like there, and this actually works in the Rams' benefit because there's just not a lot out there. So he could still stand to make a good amount of money. Speaking of money, he's gonna a trade, an imminent trade, which is what they said. They're looking at partners right now. 17.26 million in dead cap or in dead money, and then 12.5 in cap savings. That'll boost their current cap to almost $51 million, which puts them right up there in that top 5 in the league. And this is the reason at the top I was saying this offseason could look very dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know what's going on in Les Snead's brain, but I think Matthew Stafford's back in the trade market. I think this might be a reset kind of a year where they rebuild around new pillars, which I would say are probably Puka, Braden Fisk, or Jared Verse, and
You can put
probably
Brayton Fisk in there. Yeah.
Probably I'll keep him in there.
Yeah.
But so maybe this is the rebuild that they kick the can down the road. I'm going. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole.
I think we're going to go down that rabbit hole here in a minute. So that's
okay.
Perfect segue. Because now we can kind of talk trade partners and even what that trade market looks like with potentially other players coming, which obviously a big name came out also yesterday of demanding a trade. I'll just tease it. Myles Garrett from the Browns. Obviously Rams Twitter was going off on that. That was before the Cooper Kupp news, but everyone was all in on that. So we can kind of add that into this talk. But real quickly to double down or double click on something you said about, T. Higgins being the top free agent in the market. And I think what you said is spot on, that actually might bode well in not just Cooper Kupp, but the Rams' favor. that they're still not going to get a lot for him, but they might actually be able to get a little bit more than they would in previous years. Because if you're a team that needs a receiver, and I think based on age, usage, right now, T. Higgins might be considered better than Cooper Kupp, probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
That could be a debate, but is he 13 million a year more better than Cooper Kupp? And because Cooper Kupp, has set his contract set the next 2 years, whatever it is, a 17.9 million cap, 18 million cap hit. So if you can trade an asset, be it a sixth or a fifth or a seventh or whatever it is, round pick to go get Kupp, and you save yourself 12 million a year versus what you would have to give a T. Higgins, that might actually entice a couple teams more so that are a little strapped for the cap and whatnot. So it could actually behoove the Rams to get a little bit more than they would. Because I think in years past, they'd be lucky to get a sixth or a seventh. Like that'd be like probably a good deal. Like I've even heard people saying like, are we going to see a Brock Osweiler like deal where they're going to have to give an asset just to get offload Kupp with his contract? I don't think that it's got to that dire straits yet, but I think the market being what it is and the receivers out there, it may benefit the Rams a little bit. What say you to that?
To the fact that this market is beneficial for
Yeah.
the Rams? Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's desperation does a lot of funny things when it comes to spending money. I had to replace this water line out in front of my house. I just plopped down a bunch of money for that. It's not like I'm going to shop it around and find the lowest rate. The first plumber that we've got a hold of, it's like, we got him in here as soon as possible.
Yep.
And this is the NFL, and it's an offensive driven league, and we saw an interesting trade market even just a few months ago, which Cooper Kupp was a part of. Didn't end up getting traded then, but teams are throwing money around, just throwing money to get wide receivers on their teams, and I don't think any of those really panned out in a big game changing way for any of those teams, but they're going to do it again.
Yeah. Oh yeah, always. So, all right, you wrote an article last night. Let's get to this. Potential trade partners for Kupp. Who do you got? I think you did top 5. And I can throw any in that I think maybe that you didn't include, but who you got as potential? Who are the Rams going to go to the dance with?
Well, I think I ruled out 100% of all NFC teams just because I don't think Sean McVay could stand going up against his former buddy, former good friend. So I just ruled out the NFC. Some people are saying the Niners, which I don't even know I think Cooper would retire before doing that one. But my top one, the least offensive one across the board is just here in town. Chargers. Yep. Go for the Chargers. Yep. Chargers need wide receivers. They need veteran guys, definitely on that offense. I think their most veteran receiver was Josh Palmer, 4 years into his career. Yep. Certainly not a leader on that team. And they also have Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey is a slot receiver similar to Kupp. And, it'd be a really interesting dynamic to see them kind of moving inside and outside. Jim Harbaugh loves a blocking whatever more than any other player. He'd take Cooper Kupp probably over Jamar Chase just because Cooper Kupp can block. Yeah. So I think that's my top one to go to. It keeps his family here locally. He doesn't need to uproot anybody. It keeps him on a contender too. Gives him a chance to really be that mentor as well. Like I was saying to Ladd McConkey. I mean, what better tandem there, just from a big brother, little brother standpoint.
Yeah, it makes that one makes the most sense by far, just because of what you mentioned. The no uprooting the family. I think that's important to him. I think he loves LA. Not that he wouldn't go somewhere else, but I think if the Chargers want him, that makes the most sense. I think for both sides, it would benefit both, and the Rams can get something out of it. The Chargers get I don't need to say more. You said it perfectly. I think it'd be a great fit. It'd be that perfect meme that everyone puts out, exciting whites, that like the wine aisle. That would be the McConkey and Kupp show. And hey, he'd be still local, so the Nine and Dime podcast could probably roll on with him and Stafford.
Yeah, definitely. Now here's one that I cooked up in my head, in my addled brain, that I just love. And I already kind of teased it, but Cleveland Browns. Now this is galaxy brain world changing stuff. The Cleveland Browns trade Myles Garrett to the Rams for Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. Who says no? I think they could actually get more than that. I mean, Myles Garrett, they're talking 2 firsts
Yeah.
for Myles Garrett. And
Yeah.
some and an additional, it's like when you go to McDonald's, you get the meal and then you got to get the little something else as well.
Yeah.
You got to get
I'd
the
be
Big Mac and the nuggets.
That's right. Yeah. I'd be curious what Rams fans would think of that. Like, to me, I mean, at this point in the game, like, I'd be all for it. Obviously, I do agree the Rams would probably have to include a first in there. You probably have to do Stafford Cup and a first just because of the contracts and all that. But just thinking, and I'm not saying this to be mean, but thinking logically of the what the Browns want, like, if they obviously don't want to get rid of Garrett, even though he asked for a trade. If they're going to provide him with proof of trying to be a contender, they could still go after Stafford and Kupp, but it would not include Garrett, because obviously they want to be a contender. They need him on the team to still be a contender. You don't give up not just but arguably a top 3 defensive player in all of football for 2 aging offensive players and think you're in a better spot. If you add those 2 aging offensive players to him, then all of a sudden you have a 1 or 2 year window where, like, okay, look, we went all in, we went and got these guys for you. You're staying here. Let's make it happen. But yeah, I think if they're sending Garrett, it wouldn't be for 2 aging offensive players.
Yeah, no. Well, the only thing that I would say that might change that would be that Kevin Stefanski's probably in a pretty desperate place right now. They have no quarterback, so that might happen. What about Stafford Kupp for? I think they have the 5th pick in the draft.
I might do that. You're saying it's just straight up? I haven't even looked at like numbers or whatever, so we're talking all just off the cuff, everyone. But Stafford and Kupp for 5.
Yeah,
I mean, we already know you're trading Kupp and you're going to get peanuts for him. So if you can go from peanuts to a first by including Stafford, as painful and blasphemous as that sounds, but at 5, you can maybe get a pretty good quarterback right there at 5.
And this would be like the signaling of, like, we're going into a full scale rebuild. We've talked a lot about Darnold. There's a speculation that the Vikings are going to tag and trade him just to get something out of him. I mean, that's a potential trade there for Stafford as well.
Yeah. Or depending what they do with Darnold, just bringing Darnold to even as a rental to LA if you want to draft a Jackson Dart or something. Which the whole draft's gonna be fascinating to see. But yeah, I could see, regardless of getting any big returns, I could still see Cleveland being a spot for Kupp. I mean, like you mentioned, they don't have a lot of talent on the offensive side. They have Jerry Jeudy. You add Cooper Kupp with Jerry Jeudy. Nick Chubb's a free agent, so what are they going to do there? Obviously, quarterback is a big question with the whole Watson saga, but he's hurt anyway, so he's going to miss part of the season. So, if I was Kupp, I don't know if I'd want to go there, based on, especially if Myles Garrett wants out. And it seems like the Rams are going to do right by Kupp and send him kind of where he wants to go. But just based on need, like, he's a fit there.
Talk about other trade destinations. We got off topic here. I started going crazy, but what are some other Kupp trade destinations that you would like to see?
I could see. I still like the Chargers is a no-brainer, but the Broncos, I think you mentioned in your article, I think you put the Broncos. I could see the Broncos, Sean Payton, old school coach, he likes he likes what he likes as receivers. I think Kupp would fit in that system. They have Cortland Sutton, who's your true, like, ex outside receiver. They obviously have some youth there at the slot, but I think Cooper Kupp could add to that room and build upon it and would be able to run Sean Payton's system really well. So, and the Broncos and Rams have done deals in the past and have a good relationship, I think, as far as organizations go. So I could see the Broncos being one.
Yeah. I'm really intrigued. One NFC team, the Cowboys. I think that would be really fascinating to see the interplay between he and CeeDee Lamb. Dak Prescott, obviously a good quarterback. It's just not a situation I would want to put anybody in, with Brian Schottenheimer leading the show. Jerry Jerry Jones is always a circus show. So I don't want that one, but just from a schematic perspective, I think that would be really fun.
Yeah.
Getting,
That could be,
getting
the only other NFC team I'd put out there that I don't know if because you would face them in maybe not the regular season, but for sure in the playoffs would be the Lions. With you figure the ties between the two organizations, obviously they did the trade with Kupp and with Goff and Stafford and Brad Holmes, who's there and whatnot. But you figure pairing Kupp with Amon-Ra St. Brown and who they have at tight end, like that's a really, really good dynamic receiver room where again, he doesn't have to be Batman, but the Lions actually do kind of utilize a Robin. Now, is that going to be the tight end or is that going to be Cooper Kupp? That's a conversation for their new offensive coordinator because no Ben Johnson anymore. But I could potentially see him in the Motor City.
No, that would be a great one to reunite him and Goff. That would give some sentimentality to the whole proceedings of the business.
Yeah,
I don't mind that at all.
And then I'll toss back to you. The other one I could see, and I think you put it in your article too. So you get the credit, but I was thinking on the same lines. But because of the connection, obviously, of being Sean McVay's tree and Zach Taylor being the coach, I could definitely see Cincinnati also. We talked to nauseam about T. Higgins being the most expensive free agent wide receiver out there. And if the Bengals decide, we're not going to re-sign him, we'll let him go to free agency and they can get back a Cooper Kupp to pair with Jamar Chase. Very different style. Well, not very different, but different style receivers. You complement one another. You obviously have the great Joe Burrow, and Zach Taylor, comes from the McVay tree and was here when Cooper Kupp played here. So I could see the Bengals too.
Yeah, no, that's a fun one. I want something good for him. I want him to end up on a contending team, and that defense there, and that just the Bengals' propensity to not spend money. I just want Kupp to end up in a good situation.
The one that our buddy Jake has said, Jake Ellenbogen, he's said he thinks this is going to happen. And outside of him going to an NFC West team, so the Niners, Seahawks, or Cardinals, the only other team I would absolutely hate for him to go to would be this team, and that's the Kansas City Chiefs. I've seen Jake's. I haven't really seen any others. Obviously, the Chiefs do this because of contract. They kind of go and get, what's the right word? Veteran receivers that maybe are ending their stays elsewhere. They added Juju Smith-Schuster. They brought back McCole Hardman after a stint somewhere else. I could see it. I don't know if they have the cap space for it. I really hope it doesn't happen because I want to be able to root for him still. And him going to the Niners or the Chiefs or something like that, I couldn't do it. I couldn't root for him. But it would be a good situation for him.
Oh, certainly, yeah. The Chiefs were among the three teams that have been reported that were calling on Kupp before the trade deadline.
Oh, that's right.
The Chiefs were in on them, and the Bills and the Steelers also called. So, if I was the Bills, I probably wouldn't want to add Cooper Kupp. I'd want to add a different kind of piece, like a T. Higgins. But the Steelers are an interesting trade partner for the Rams as well, packaging Stafford and Kupp as to go get him, to go get a quarterback and a receiver and make themselves a contender. The Steelers don't really do deals like that though. But I could, Cooper Kupp is a Steeler kind of a player. It seems like. So that's another one.
He could, and if he were to leave the Rams, I think Aaron Donald would sign off on that one. Him going to the Steelers, being a Pittsburgh guy. So yeah, crazy. Anyone else you want to add, or is that kind of?
I think we named half the AFC. So
yeah, I think we're good there.
But he's the kind of guy that teams want on their team, even if he's not like the most productive receiver. I mean, what he did for Puka Nacua to get him up to speed and into the game, like Puka Nacua is the first one to tell you, like Cooper Kupp changed his life in terms of a player, made him like more healthy, more body conscious in terms of like being prepared for the season and whatnot. Other notes: Nick Caley hired by
Texans.
Texans. I was going to say Jaguars, but yeah, Texans. So tight ends coach for the Rams gone. They'll have to replace him. And then James Gladstone, new name that I've never really come across before, being interviewed for the GM job in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
To replace Trent Baalke. Kara Henderson posted about this guy like he's like Gandhi and Vince Lombardi combined. So it seemed like he was a bit of a Les Snead's protege. So interesting thing to keep an eye on there.
Yeah, all the quick indications I've seen from around conversations, there'd be a big loss. He's heavily involved in scouting and like you said, kind of Les Snead's right-hand man or protege and really helped with roster construction and whatnot. So it would be a big loss. That's just because you brought up and we didn't really say it, but how big of a loss do you think Nick Caley is? It's a name that Rams fans might not know a ton about, but he's been sought after now 2 cycles. And I know he was just the Rams, not just, but he was the Rams tight end coach, but also I believe the passing game coordinator. But what do you think whether that loss or just what he brings to the Texans as like an offensive mind?
He was brought on to the staff by McVay because he knows the Patriot way. He was a longtime Patriots coach. McVay likes to do this where he hires guys that are overqualified for the position that they were in. So he was not gonna stick around for a long time.
Yeah.
What I saw at training camp is he is an energetic, motivating. He was a force for the Rams. As probably as close to an offensive coordinator as possible. Great energy, like I was saying. And, for those people that don't know, tight ends coaches are some of the best minds in football. Arthur Smith was a tight ends coach.
Sean McVay was a tight ends
coach. McVay was a tight ends coach. Matt LaFleur was a tight ends coach as well. And it's because they have their hands in the running game and passing game from a blocking perspective, but also, from a you got to know what's going on in the passing game as well because they're catching passes. So anyway, long way to get around it is it's a big position, and he was overqualified for that job, and he turned down a couple of jobs. He turned down the Jets job, OC job, and he turned down the Patriots job a couple of years ago. So he's been sought after, and there's a reason for that. Talent is recognized in the NFL. So it's not a huge loss. It's not irreplaceable. We've seen it over and over again. Sean McVay is fantastic at finding the next talented offensive mind. So I'm not worried about it, but he's a good coach.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, for those that don't quite know yet, like tight end coach is kind of the position coach to get to the next step at offensive coordinator. You rarely see a receivers coach go to OC. Not saying it never happens. I think Mike McDaniel was a receivers coach, I believe.
I think he was everything.
I think he was all over. You're right.
Yeah.
Running back coach is not, again, never, rare. It's usually the QB coach or the tight end coach. Just because of everything you said, the tight end coach has to know everything. And they say even at the position, like when you're going from the NFL or from the college to the NFL, the position that's hardest to transition is quarterback and then tight end, because tight end, you have to learn everything about the offense in all different intangibles. Plus you're kind of that tweener body where you're asked to block against these big defensive ends and sometimes tackles, but then also go out and catch passes against the speedy safeties and corners. So the tight end coach is compartmentalizing all of that on a coaching perspective. And it's why someone like a Nick Caley that might not be known by the average fan is someone I think has been sought after in the NFL and will potentially be a very successful OC and maybe even a head coach one day. And he basically, like you said, turned ones down. Like he wanted the Texans job, if there were any out there. That's when, obviously CJ Stroud and some of the talent they have and playing for DeMeco Ryans or coaching for DeMeco Ryans. So I think they definitely got a good one. And it's crazy to think that, that the OC they had before, that I'm drawing a blank on his name all of a sudden.
Bobby Slowick.
Bobby Slowick, thank you, came from San Francisco from the Shanahan tree. A year ago was seen as this next like potential head coach in waiting, and 1 year later fired, and they go to the Rams coaching tree.
You got to evolve, baby. Yeah. I think it's a great situation for him. I think it's set up perfectly for him to be really successful and watch out for that team. They made it to the playoffs, won a playoff game. I think they're a better team than that even. With what they have on the staff. So
definitely.
Watch out for the Texans.
Maybe that's where Kupp ends up. Follows Kelly to the Texans.
That's a good idea.
Because Stephon Diggs is a free agent.
Yeah, they got a great core. I mean, between Tank Dell and Nico Collins, I mean, you add Cooper Kupp to that, and you're cooking with gas.
That could be one to watch. Kupp in Houston. Okay.
New favorite right there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially because knows Nick Caley, obviously. So, but I mean, anywhere he goes in the NFL, there's going to be some Rams fingerprint there.
It's hard everywhere. Not to,
Basically, no matter where he goes, is some McVay branch somewhere.
Vikings.
Yeah, Vikings. I know is one that people have
Jacksonville.
talked about. Yeah, anywhere really. So. But all right, well, sombering news, but we'll have all the coverage for you as it breaks down. Thank you, everyone, as always, for hanging out with us. If you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. Rams LAFB is the channel. We would appreciate that. If you prefer listening on, or just wanted in addition to listen on audio platform, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, just search Rams Skinny, or everything can be found at LAFBnetwork.com. We have all of our videos, all of our audio, and all of our editorial all right there. Social at LAFB Network. I'm at Ryan Dart LAFB, at RL Anderson LAFB. Everyone have a fantastic start to your week, and we'll be back in a few days with more Rams talk.
If this were a Reese's TV ad, you'd be staring at a Reese's peanut butter cup. And sure, my voice is peanut buttery smooth, but still, you need to see the peanut butter cups, right? No? I can really just say Reese's and you'll go get some? Okay, Reese's. 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 Really working, actually. Reese's. Reese's. I'm on to something. Reese's. Reese's. Reese's.